Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, fellow directors. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples and welcome you to today's agenda. Also welcome to Alternate Director Justice and Alternate Director McNeil. Welcome. Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda with the addition of one new business item, which is a staff report from the Arts and Culture Division regarding a budget amendment for function 426.
Moved by Director Acton, seconded by Director Marcotte. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next items on the agenda are adoption of the minutes, and the first motion before you is that the minutes of the Community Services Committee meeting of May 8th, 2019 be adopted.
Duly moved. Do I have a seconder? Seconded. Any questions on the minutes or comments? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you. Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next motion before you is that the minutes of the Special Community Services Committee meeting of June 26, 2019 be adopted.
Moved. Seconded. Questions? All in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is no business arising from the minute.
Thank you very much. At this time, it's public input period. The policies on the projectors there. Is anyone from the public who wishes to put some input to this committee? We're a fun committee. I'm a fun chair of this committee. How's that? We'll chat later, Director Stone. Seeing none, we'll move on. Ms. Harrison, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item on the agenda is delegations, and the first delegation is Andrew McKinnon from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure.
Thank you. Welcome, sir.
Hello, not Andrew McKinnon, Matt Butterfield from Infrastructure. I apologize.
If we can just turn the microphone on, there's a little button there in the front. Excellent. Thank you.
Let me just pull up. So, thanks for having us here today. What we want to chat with you about today is the Holt Creek Trestle along the Cowichan Valley Regional Trail. We want to inform you of some of our plans for this trestle and this section of the corridor that we'll be looking at in the next couple of months. So for those who don't know, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure manages a section of the Cowichan Valley Regional Trail. It's from the Deerholm Y up to Lake Cowichan. Along this section of trail, there is a variety of trestles that you will see to go over the different rivers and creeks that are there. There's the one we want to chat about is the Holt Creek Trestle. Holt Creek Trestle, it's 73 meters long, it's 34 meters high. It was built in 1922. And right now there's very little left of it from the original structure. We refurbished this trestle in about 2001. And our recent engineering investigations indicate about 60% of the timbers are in poor condition. So we're looking to do some refurbishment or replacement of this trestle. The timeline for this, we're looking to have this done hopefully within the next 2 years. So a background of what we've been doing on this trestle. 2017, we did an assessment into the state and condition of the trestle. We realized from this assessment that we needed to shut down the trestle to do some urgent repairs on it. We shut down the trestle between October 2017 and July 2018, and we did quite a lot of work for immediate issues with the trestle system. This year, we're looking at what we can do for future options and future solutions for the trestle. We're going further into the investigations of ongoing safety with the trestle. We're tendering some drawings for replacement plans for our long-term solution to the trestle. We're looking to consult with the different stakeholders of the trestle and the rail trail system. And we're looking to eventually choose a final long-term solution for this trestle system moving forwards. 2020, we're looking to start work on construction of the trestle. We don't have a time frame for this currently. We're trying to mitigate the different trail use impacts. We're hopefully looking to do this during the off-season where there's minimal trail use. And we're looking to hopefully that this work will not take longer than a year to complete. We also don't currently have a time frame for potential rerouting of the trail. Once we know the exact extent of the work that we're going to be doing on the trail, we'll have a better idea of what our time frames will be. Work on the Holt trestle, most of the core structural elements have about 3 to 7 years of lifespan left on them, although some of the components are currently at end of life. When I say end of life, this does not currently pose any safety concerns. The trestle was built to hold a much larger load than the current load of pedestrians, bicycle, and horse traffic across it. So we're looking at the different options available to us right now. If we're looking to continue repairing the trestle structure, we're looking about having to spend about $6.25 million over the next couple years. And to replace it, we're looking to spend about $4 million to do the actual work on the trestle system. Our preferred course of action in this right now is to replace the trestle, given that it will have a less of a financial impact over the long term, and hopefully put a longer term option available to us. Couple ideas on designs that we've been looking at for what to do with this trestle system. This is our first concept and design. The advantages to this system, it's visually most similar to the existing structure. It's low material cost of putting a beam bridge like this in place. The disadvantages of this, there's going to be additional construction tasks. More elements need to be handled on site rather than being prefabricated and being able to be brought to the construction site. It's going to be more difficult to construct. The existing structure is less ready for temporary support. And what will happen, if you notice there's the two long sections that go down into the creek bed, there is a potential for some debris buildup in the long run of having this option. And this area does have more elements and surface area for inspection and maintenance, and we do see that the long-term costs of having a structure like this are going to be more expensive than the other options that we're currently looking at. Looking at the other option that we're looking at is a simpler structure. The advantages is to building a simpler structure, fewer elements, low overall surface area for inspection and maintenance, so the long-term operating costs of such a trestle will be mitigated, or will be lessened, sorry. It's a simple design and construction, should be easier to complete, and we have no concerns over water and debris loading into the bottom of the trestle system. So hopefully, again, less costs in the long-term operating and hopefully a longer life from this model. The disadvantages is there'll be some additional costs of installation effort in the valley. If you see where it's anchored to the sides of the valley, that we'll have to put some additional rock anchors in, so there's some additional upfront costs in regards to this model. Something to note on the Holt trestle. As you approach the trestle and move away from the trestle, it's very difficult to see the substructure underneath. So we're not looking at a trestle like Kinsole, where there is a wonderful panoramic view of what the substructure of that trestle system could look like. It's very difficult to get a vantage point of what's actually underneath the main boards going across this trestle, which is also why we're looking for a simpler potential substructure. There's no concerns like we would have with Kinsole. So, we recognize the CVRD is not responsible for this section of trail. we wanted to inform you of the work that we are going to be doing in this area, as it does affect the citizens of the Cowichan Valley. So we wanted to make sure that when we're doing work, we were going to bring potential issues to your attention. We would also be looking to potentially seek your support in any public consultation that we would be doing with the Cowichan Valley. So we want to let you know we're going to be doing this work in the next few years. Hopefully we will have the ability to start construction fall next year, although that's not a set time frame, or not a 100% time frame right now. We would be looking for support from the CVRD in regards to connecting with local stakeholders for our proposed strategy, and to communicate the timeline of repairs and the rerouting of the trail network during the construction of the Holt Trestle. And what we'll be looking, the funding structures that we're looking at do involve looking at some federal grant funding on this. And whenever we're asking for federal grant funding, it's easier to go down that route if we have buy-in from the local government. So we'll be looking for support in any of our grant applications for funding to rebuild this trestle. So our next steps in regards to this, we're advancing with our concept work and business case, and we'll be having input from the CVRD for this. We will be hopefully working with your staff to identify what the key stakeholders are for this project, and we'd like to keep you informed of what's the timelines, and what, as we advance with what we're going to do, we'll make sure to inform accordingly. At that point, open it up to any questions.
Excellent, thank you very much. I do have a speakers list. I'm going to start with Director Sebring.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the presentation. It's always good to see a piece of infrastructure that our people use that we're not paying for directly through acquisition here. A couple of questions. I'm assuming, you didn't explicitly say it, but I'm assuming that we're looking at option 2 in terms of what you're recommending to build.
That currently is our preferred option.
And the other question I have, because in here it talks about choosing a final realignment. Is that realignment for the interim period? Will the trail still be usable, or is it a new alignment depending on the location of the trestle?
This would be an interim realignment. So looking at, because we'll have to take the Holt Trestle out of commission while we do the rebuilding work on it, we want to make sure that the trail system is still accessible.
Okay, that's where I was going.
Yeah, so we're looking to.
So it will be on with some kind of little Jersey bridge temporarily or something?
We're looking at our options right now of what we have for existing trail networks through the park and where other crossings could be. I think there's a couple of alternatives already in place, so we wouldn't have to necessarily build a temporary bridge across. It would be a bit of a longer realignment, but that's currently what we're looking at options.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I have Director Kuhn next.
I'm wondering, you are in charge of that bridge. Why do you need to consult and ask stakeholders and all this nonsense? Why not just go and build it?
Well, we want to make sure.
And it seems that you favor option 2, and I think that would be the logical option. I know the Holt Creek Trestle, and yes, you can't see the substructure. So I just don't get it. I mean, yes, we can make things complicated, and we try to consult with everybody, but in essence, you're holding the money. You want to do it. Why not just go and do it?
We want to make sure every time we're impacting a community that we let the community know what we're doing and understand if there's going to be concerns coming out from the community. But at this point, yeah, we are looking to replace it, and hopefully in a shorter period of time.
Thank you. Director Yanni DiNardo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming. I hold an opposite view. I really appreciate the Ministry of Transportation. We met with them the other day on something else to do with the roads in a regional district. It's a challenge. And also, it's good when we do participate and communicate together so that we can move forward, and the funding is actually a lot smoother, like you'd already mentioned. You need to have partnerships for the federal funding. And so I appreciate your time, and I appreciate the PowerPoint too. Thank you, because I think this will just add to, we see the success of the Kinsall and also getting off of our roadways, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Director Justice next.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through you to the speaker, thank you for your presentation. I note that there's in between, say, Shawnigan Lake and Lake Couch, and there's quite a few trestles. And I'm just wondering whether you're thinking about this repair or replacement in terms of other trestles, just given that this could shut the trail down for a year, or at least shut it down to a lot of different types of traffic for a year, whether we're going to just enjoy a series of these over the next decades.
Based on the engineering reports on the different structures along the trail right now, the Holt trestle is the one that needs to be replaced sooner than later. We are looking, and we have budgeted for next year to be doing some minor repairs and replacement on the other 3 trestles along the network. They were not deemed to be in need of replacement in the next foreseeable future. So at this point, we're only looking to replace the Holt.
Thank you very much. Director Smith.
Through the chair, thank you very much for your presentation. Riding over bridges or walking over bridges is always a treat for adults and children. It brings an adventure to your journey as you're moving along. Is this the only location for this trestle? Is there an option of moving it one way or the other and retaining what's there while you work on a different location? I'm sure you've already explored that, but I was just wondering.
The main options we've explored right now are replacing it in its current alignment. The alignment, I believe, to the west is private property, and on the east is the provincial park. So the most logical place for the crossing is in its current place.
Any further directors? I've placed myself on the list, so I'll go next. Within the scope of the project, is there any options for maintenance on the surfaces from Scotts Falls, for instance, into the Holt and up into Lake Cowichan? There has been some concern about some safety issues on the surfaces of some of those brought forward by some residents as well.
So
Is that in the scope of the project?
Not the scope in this project, but we do have budget allocated next year to be doing some more work along the trail system. So we're looking to do our bi-monthly inspections for spot improvements. We're looking to do the minor trestle works on the other 3 trestles along the corridor. There was the area just north of the Holt Creek trestle that had a minor slide last year. We're looking to clean up that area and potentially go back to its proper alignment. We're looking at options right now. And then we are potentially looking for either some water management with culverts and ditching, or trail, or the surface improvements next year. So it's on our radar that some work needs to be done.
Excellent. Anything further? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Butterfield, for your
Thank you very much.
presentation. Appreciate it. Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item on the agenda is delegation number 2. Michelle Bell, Cowichan Valley Youth Services, regarding services offered and a memorandum of understanding for the renovation and development of the youth hub in the former Aquinas Center space at the Cowichan Community Center.
Good afternoon, milady. We go way back. As a former counselor, we thought it would be appropriate to change our title, and that's what female counselors were going to be called. So thank you, former milady.
So first, I just want to acknowledge we're on the unceded traditional Coast Salish territory, and that I feel privileged to do so. I'm Michelle Bell. I'm the Executive Director of Cowichan Valley Youth Services, and I use the pronouns she, her, they, them. I'm just going to, I know most of you have long meetings today. This is one of many, so I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I just want to apologize to those that are on the committee and have seen this video. It's painful and humiliating for us as well, so you get to endure it one more time. Mayor Sebring and Lori, Yanni DiNardo, and is Allison here? She's probably seen it twice. So we're going to just put a video on, and then I'll just explain a little bit about the timeline of the project, and then I have amazing team here, a board and staff who take time out of their busy days of saving lives to come and support the initiative and the Cowichan youth and to support me. So I'm just very appreciative of their time and yours. So thank you again. I'm just going to put on the video, and well, you'll see it for yourself. Yeah. I'll go to, I think I'd be able to figure it out. Slideshow. Nope. Review. It shouldn't be any different than any other. From the beginning. Aha, found it. But it's not in, okay. I'm being impatient with it. And it's at the end. I'll let you do it. But is it on full screen? You can put it faster. Okay, thank you.
I'm Michelle Bell. I'm the Executive Director for Cowichan Valley Youth Services. Cowichan Valley Youth Services has been serving the Cowichan communities for over 45 years, and we see well over 1,500 youth and families in a year. We serve youth 13 to 18 and their families, individual family counseling in an office or during outreach. We have drop-in groups for youth, art group, climbing group, girls empowerment groups, hiking groups. We've done fun and game groups. We've offered workshops in schools or here on various issues like healthy relationships, anxiety, depression. We do professional development and training for professionals in the community such as schools or social workers, foster parents. We consider ourselves a low barrier service. We're accessible. We offer a safe environment. We offer programs like the Leadership and Resiliency Youth Employment Mentorship Program. But what I'm most proud of to be part of the Cowichan Valley Youth Services team is the team here and our staff. We're all passionate about youth. We are youth and heart-centered. We believe youth are valuable in the community.
Hi, I'm Tracy, and this is Autumn, and this is Karen, and we are Team YIMP. We feel really fortunate to be a part of this amazing program that's geared at helping youth age 15 to 30 find confidence, gain life skills, and find meaningful employment. They make a 12-week commitment, and during the first 5 weeks, they're paid minimum wage to attend a variety of workshops, activities, complete a professional resume, cover letter, prepare for job interviews, and have the opportunity to earn 5 certificates. We also have money to provide them for transportation costs, to help them buy materials and clothing they might need for their work experience. And once hired, we remain involved and provide consistent support to help them maintain the job they've worked so hard to get. We are also able to offer employers a 75% wage subsidy, so it's an added incentive to give our deserving youth an opportunity to really better themselves and their lives.
We are so grateful for the positions that we have in the Youth Employment Mentorship Program, and we also acknowledge the contributions from the incredible counseling team at Cowichan Valley Youth Services. They offer heart-centered counseling to our youth and provide so much success for this program. And the amazing employers in our community who also contribute so much and give so much back in support of our youth finding entry-level meaningful work in our community. And we absolutely appreciate the active involvement of our community partners such as Literacy Now, Global Vocational Services, and School District 79.
I believe what sets the YEMP program apart from other programs in the Valley is that we have a focus on the strengths that the youth already carry within them. And what keeps us motivated, I think it's safe for me to speak for all of us on this, is when they start to realize all that is within them and they start to use that in their daily lives.
It's very inspiring.
Yeah.
And we're very lucky.
We are.
The YEMP program was actually really enjoyable and really fun. We did a bunch of fun activities and all while learning things. And the counselors here never ever made it feel like it was work. It was more of learning through doing.
But when I came to the YEMP program and got accepted, they were able to help me write a resume, feel confident in myself because I had no training whatsoever. So I wasn't too sure like where to start pretty much, and pretty much like a blank slate. And yeah, they helped me work with interviews, get my tickets, all my tickets I needed for employment. We worked in groups, which was very nice. And
in the YEMP program, I think the biggest thing that helped me gain confidence and help me put myself out there wasn't just all the support with everybody around me, but as well a regimen of when we would put in calls to employers, right? So doing it at scheduled intervals and making sure you did it every time meant that, you know, even if the first thing didn't go through, you knew you had to pull through for 2 or 3 more, and that's just how it was. And that that little bit of a push helped you get going.
YEMP has helped me out in many ways, from being unemployed to going straight into employment after a program, and as well as social ways. Before YEMP, I was very antisocial and very quiet, and talking to like the 8 or so people in my group, and the counselors really helped me come out of my circle and make me find who I really wanted to be in life. After YEMP, I've been a lot happier. I've noticed a lot more confident with myself. Even if I was to be unemployed, I'd still feel very confident with me being able to get another job soon. And I think YEMP is just a fantastic experience that if you're having any sort of employment problems or anything like that, it'd be great for you to check out, for sure.
My name's Danielle, and I'm the team lead for the Leadership and Resiliency Program in the Cowichan Valley, also known as LRP. We're in 4 schools in the Valley, high schools, and we meet weekly for resiliency groups where we gather and have a bite to eat and explore themes of connection, belonging, safety, healthy coping, healthy communication, and just try to create a space for youth to really feel like they belong and be celebrated for who they really are. Also in this program, we're really lucky to have funding that allows us to do adventures such as rock climbing, whale watching, zip lining, going for hikes, and exploring neat things you can do in the Valley and create a sense of healthy risk for the youth. The last part of the program is service learning, which is volunteer projects. So the youth get together and decide on a project that they feel passionate about and they can give back to the community in some way. In the past, these have been Christmas hampers, homelessness survival kits, and cleaning up local areas. In the past 4 years, we've served 150 youth through the LRP program, and we're hoping to reach the number of 200 by the end of the program, which is in August 2019.
My name is Sophia, and I'm a youth and family counselor with Cowichan Valley Youth Services. The piece that I want to talk about today is the incredible honor that I have to work with trans, queer, and curious youth in our community. Another piece that I do is I'm a co-facilitator of a group called Family Pride. That group is intended for guardians, parents, and other family members who are looking for support and information for the youth that they know that are queer, trans, or curious. But it's also a space for them to explore their own journey and their own questions that they might have in a safe and supportive, non-judgmental environment.
I know when you come to Cowichan Valley Youth Services, no matter who you see and what program you're in, you'll be taken care of.
How cute they are every time I see them. I'm like, oh, I'm so proud of them. You know, all those youth. They were all volunteers. They all wanted to be in the
video, just so you know, not the staff, but the youth. So just some quick statistics. We actually are serving this year at 1,600 youth and families in the area. You'd think there was probably none left, but there seems to be. 220 of those referrals were mental health referrals. Our number one referral is anxiety, and our number two referral is parent and teen conflict. We have 66 youth on our wait list now, and most of those are deemed high risk, and the complexities of the family and youth coming in are getting higher and higher. So sometimes we're feeling a little overwhelmed, and we're out of space to do more programming. So the one program you saw there with the Adventures, we've served over 300 youth in that program. And in the Youth Employment Mentorship Program, we've served over 300 youth, and we have a 96% success rate. So the minister, when they came to Nanaimo, the minister stopped in on the island in our service. We've had 2 calls from Ottawa thanking us for the program and letting us know that they know what we're doing and they appreciate it. So we're very, very proud of the youth in the community, and I'm very, very proud of the team and the youth we're able to reach. So I'm just going to quickly shoot off some dates. We started this project actually 5 years ago, February 2014. There was a whole bunch of us. Since then, most people have bought their own buildings and moved on, but we are stubborn and persistent. So September 2016, we actually presented when the Island Savings Center, now it's the Commission, Community Center, was North Cowichan City and CVRD. So we presented to North Cowichan in January 2015 and sent a proposal to them. In September 2016, we presented a concept design to the commission, so September. October 13th, 2016, we presented to the Island Savings Center Commission. 7 months later, they put out an RFP and did a community consultation process. That took 4 months. 10 months after that, we got a call saying, hey, we're interested. The community has resoundingly said we are interested in youth being in there. So they did a pretty thorough consultation about what would they like to see in that space. So 10 months later, they asked for us to submit in another proposal. So we put in a proposal, a more clear proposal for what they were looking for. In August 2017, and then July 2018, so we've had some elections and some new people in the community. So in July 2018, we did another presentation to the Island Savings. Thank you for your patience, Terry. She's been amazing to work with. So we did a presentation, and in that presentation, they put forward a directed staff to do a memorandum of understanding, and then to start on some timelines and the concept design. And so that's where we're at. And then this has been created. So now we're here to let you know. So here we are, July 2018. So a year later, the memorandum of understanding's in draft form. It's gone through legal. It's gone through the commission a few times, and now it's at your committee. And then today it'll be going to, it depends on your decision today. So we're here to ask you to approve it and keep the process moving. It's been a long haul, but we think it's important for the community, or else we would just go get a building somewhere else. We have Purica Foundation who have agreed to do the fundraiser for us, and we have interest from other big funders, and there's some provincial matching dollars that are available if we can keep this going for next year. So we're pretty excited about this moving forward. So we would be paying, as you see in the memorandum, the renovation costs, and we would be doing up an agreement moving forward if we keep this going. So I'm just going to ask Sophia and Mila and Grant if they wanted to come up. If you wanted to say anything or if you had any questions, you can talk directly to the team. Did you want to come and say the importance of the youth hub? They just wanted to speak to the hub.
I'm not a counselor. I'm not chair of the.
He's our
I'm
board
chair of
chair.
the board.
He's
so
the chair of our board,
You don't
and
have to ask
then
me
chair.
anything about services, but
And this
I
is
can give you the broad picture.
Sophia, and this is Mila. Mila's a team leader of the counseling team, and Sophia is a team leader of our leadership and resiliency program. But they're both youth and family counselors, and they were actually the team that helped with Youth Pride. If any of you are at Youth Pride, so they do a lot. And Grant's just amazing, just being him.
Well, you all are amazing for having us here. Thank you so much. So maybe we'll just open it up for questions instead of speaking directly to the importance.
Excellent. I do have a speakers list, and we'll start with Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for everything you do there. I can speak from personal experience on anxiety in children. I've seen it too many times, especially, and in my family as well. And it's not a pretty thing, and I know it's difficult to get help. Even if you're a professional in that field, they have trouble getting help for their own children. And thank you for everything that you do there. Is there a minimum age and a maximum age that you deal with the children? You don't just say, okay, you're 18-year-old, you're gone, and that's what we've seen before happening. And is that the way it works with you guys as well? Thank you.
So this is a beautiful question, and thank you for asking it. So for us, we serve youth ages 13 to 18. That being said, I think our hearts are bleeding hearts, and so there is some flexibility there. We don't just, I don't know how else to say it, but just drop a youth after they hit their 19th birthday. We definitely follow them and make sure that they're held as beautifully as they possibly can be in their process of transitioning, because that is such a tricky time of life, that transition stage from youth to adults. And so we also know that there's a difference between developmental and chronological age. So even if someone's 19, chronologically, developmentally, maybe their hearts and minds are still 14 while they're processing all the trauma they've been through and the different experiences they've had and how difficult it is to navigate the system. So we definitely try to make space for that, but we do define youth as 13 to 18, and that's sort of our mandated age that we work with, but we definitely have some flexibility there.
We also do a lot of family counseling, so sometimes that does include younger siblings as well, if it's appropriate.
If possible, could you just speak into the mic for those who are listening at home?
Yeah,
They're
Just,
they're glued to their computers watching this, just so you're aware.
Yeah, just that we also do a lot of family counseling, and sometimes that means the younger siblings are impacted, and if it's appropriate, we'll definitely bring them in as well.
And our youth employment mentorship program does serve youth 15 to 30, so that's another, so even though our definition of youth is 13 to 18, for that specific program and because of the funding and the definition of youth within that funding, we do sort of stretch that for youth up to the age of 30, yeah.
Excellent. Director Yanni DiNardo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the delegation. Thank you so much, and nice to see you, Grant, always in the community volunteering and helping out in different boards. And also I just want to make the comment that Michelle has been doing this for a lot of years, and we really appreciate it in our valley. It's the sort of the quiet background working with youth that I have noticed for many years, so I'd like to thank you all.
Wait, okay, sorry, I got up here. I like to say that from a business point of view, that if we're doing a good job in Cowichan Valley Youth, you're not going to see the problems. You're going to see the problems is if those kids have not had that interaction at an early age, then you're going to see them living on the streets and all the problems and the theft and the other issues we have. If we're doing a good job here in counseling those kids, you'll never hear our success stories.
Excellent, thank you. Director Sebring?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the delegation. I'm not sure if this is a question directed to Michelle or to Grant. I've been following this. I've been on the Island Savings Center, now Cowichan Community Center Commission, for 10 years, so the history that Michelle outlined is very familiar to me. We've looked at all kinds of different options for that space. The obstacle always was the capital improvements, because basically we're talking a bunch of old dressing rooms with brick walls that are this thick that have to come out, and we got to put in some windows. There's a lot of structural work that needs to be done there. I mean, I was at the table when North Cowichan and Duncan jointly turned this over to the CBRD for $1 and gave up the reserve fund that was there to maintain the old space. That money is still tucked away somewhere. But just for the committee's benefit and for those who might be watching, the financial implications for the community center, there is in this draft agreement a notion that there's going to, not only are you going to pay for the capital improvements, but there's rent involved, correct?
That's the agreement we'll be working out if this shall pass. The next part will be, I'm assuming we're going to come to the commission and say, if we put this much money in for renovations, and we know how much the space is generally leased out. Would there be a relief period for that amount? But it would be on a long-term lease, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah.
We've done that before when we
Yeah.
renovated upstairs in what used to be the restaurant next to the arena. That turned into a dance studio, and we leased that to the school district. I think we forgave rent for a couple of years based on the capital improvement. So, I mean, that's fair, but
Yeah.
just in terms of the financial implications for the center, I mean, to be fair, we haven't collected rent on that space for
Yeah.
15 years.
We would be tenants.
Yeah.
We would be tenants, and we would sign a long-term lease, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Director. Director Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to whoever is going to answer this, I hope it's not an inappropriate question, and I understand if it would be, but these young people are citizens, and citizens are what we serve here. And I'm wondering if you could tell me maybe the top one or two themes that are causing anxiety in our young people right now. Is that possible, or is that inappropriate?
theories, we can,
That's a beautiful question, and I think very appropriate. I think there's so many unique experiences for all of us in terms of our own struggles or experiences with anxiety specifically. But so much of the narrative I pick up on within the community and within the youth is this sense of not belonging and not being seen and not being appreciated and celebrated for who these amazing youth are. And so that's what I witness our team doing and our agency doing on a daily basis, is just really moving with the youth and meeting the youth where they're at and really listening to their stories and what they need, and then defining and determining programming as well as individualized counseling, family counseling for those needs. And so if I was to determine factors that are influencing that level of anxiety or those heightened needs within our young people in this community, I'd say it's like a systemic experience, not an individual experience. So these youth are sort of sponges and reflections of what's going on within our community. And so poverty, trauma, intergenerational trauma, those sorts of pieces I see coming up so frequently with these youth, and not having outlets and ways to express that or even put a name to what they're feeling, and that shows up in different behaviors and symptoms. And so anxiety is more a symptom of a deeper experience, in my opinion. I don't know.
Beautiful, yeah. And just maybe one little thing to add to that is I think in this community there can also be a bit of isolation that happens, especially for young people. A lot of times adults can kind of find their people in their niche, whereas young people don't always have that. And it just, to me, highlights the importance of having a hub or a place where they can just come and be with other youth and be seen and maybe explore it, like, 'cause it's an overwhelming time when you're that age and you're a teen, and that can produce a lot of anxiety, and then not feeling like you have you know where to start or where to go. It's a nice idea to have a landing place for them.
Excellent. Any further
you.
questions? Alternate Director Justice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, through you to the delegation. I'm really interested in the Leadership and Resiliency Program, and I guess especially some of your experiences with counseling with trans, queer, and curious youth. The community society is changing really quickly, so there's a lot more freedom to express publicly who you feel you are or curious about. And yet it's probably not changing fast enough. So I was wondering if you've got any observations on aspects of the community and how it's structured that still need to be adjusted in order to sort of facilitate the sorts of counseling that you're doing with trans, queer, and curious youth.
You all ask amazing, really exciting questions. This is
Well,
like our
we're all
jam.
youth at heart.
Pardon?
We are all youth at heart
Yes,
at this
I see
table.
that. It's beautiful.
Excellent.
Thank you for that question, and it's a big question. So I think things are getting, I don't know if I want to say easier, but they're changing for sure. And so at the Youth Pride Parade this year, as it was noted, like, some youth weren't able to come out because they are still not out, and it's not safe within this community, it's not safe within their families to be who they are. And so a lot of work needs to start within the families, and that's where our Family Pride group stemmed from, was just providing that safe space where there are no dumb questions, there's no judgment for the adults in these youths' lives to come together and sort of get that literacy, that awareness, and that sensitivity around identity and sexuality in a way that they can start providing more safe spaces for their youth to be who they are. So I think it's a ripple effect within the family systems, within the school systems, within the medical system, and there's some amazing champions within our community that are really spearheading that in the medical community, within the school community, within our counseling team community, within this group of people. So it's really exciting. There's this ripple effect that is happening, and I just want to see more of it. I don't know how else to articulate that, but just more. It's so exciting.
Yeah, I just think to add, there's something that we do in counseling called like signaling safety. And so that's a really important piece for communities to do. And whether that's something little like flying a flag, or whether it's hosting pride events, or those are the things that we can do that just say like it's okay for you to be here. And I think that actually impacts families to be like, oh, that is okay, that is something that is okay for me to explore and to let my youth explore and all of that. So it can be simple things, but it is really important in the community just to have those. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Excellent. Last time for the questions. Thank you, Ms. Bell.
I just brought, we just had our AGM, so it's stock full of information and success stories, and then our pamphlet. To save trees, I just brought 2 copies. If anybody's interested, I can pass it around.
We can scan it and digitally.
Sure. Well, everything's on our website, but
Okay.
if anybody wants it, I just thought some people are interested, some aren't. So
Certainly.
I'll just pass it around.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much again for having
Thanks
us.
to
We really
you and
appreciate
your
it.
colleagues. Thank you very much. Moving on, Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item on the agenda is correspondence. There is none. Information. Item IN1 is a summary report from the Parks and Trails Division regarding recommendations arising from Community Parks Advisory Commission minutes. And there are 9 of those listed. Would you like me to read them out, or?
I have a speaker here who may want to pull one. Director Morrison, or you wish to speak to one?
Well, if I could, Mr. Chair, through you, and I might be to staff, just in reviewing the minutes, I think I've found 3 different sets that I'm not sure should be considered at this point. I note that in Area A, the June 10th meeting, based on what I read in the agenda, it didn't appear there was quorum. The Area G, May 6th meeting, you can't determine because the members weren't listed. And then again, Area G, June 3rd meeting, it doesn't appear from the minutes that there was quorum. So I might ask if we could have some clarification, or perhaps have these referred back. And then if we refer them back, then I guess the recommendations in the first item can't actually be considered. So I would ask staff how we might approach that.
Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Director Morrison. Instead of pulling them piece by piece and item by item out of the staff report, I would suggest that you just refer the whole item back. It's just there for information, so.
Okay, I have hands waving all over the place. Director Smith.
All the parks commissions are going through a learning process, and the minutes, there was a workshop, but it wasn't held until after the 6th of June. And so they're working on creating the minutes to be acceptable by the CVRD staff and the board. It's been a learning curve, and I do apologize if Area G, that the minutes didn't indicate that there was a quorum on possibly the 6th, or on the May meeting or the June meeting. But I do have some items on those minutes that I'd like to pull and discuss. And are we changing our process on this, or because all of a sudden now there's an overview that's been created on these minutes. So is Parks and Trails changing our process again?
Anyone want that? Mr. Carruthers?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe what Parks and Trails have done here is for the benefit of the committee to see all of the minutes all in a summarized document without having to go through each one individually. I have been discussing with Parks and Trails as well, as these come forward in the future, that we would look at providing some recommendations or some staff perspectives on the various recommendations that the commissions are making, so that the board has the benefit of a status update from staff on them as well, because you can see there are a number of recommendations, and we would just like to make it easier for the committee to be able to consider any of those that get brought forward by individual directors.
Thank you. Back to Director Morrison.
Well, I was going to move that at least the ones mentioned be referred back to the commissions for clarification and correction.
Okay, so moved. Is there a seconder? No seconder, that fails.
right there.
Oh, I'm sorry. And discussion on that? Call the question. Those ones referred to, can you repeat those, please?
Certainly, Area A, June 10th, Area G, May 6th and June 3rd.
Director Acton.
Thank you. I don't know that I'm not
On the propriety of referral.
I'm not going to vote in favor of this. I think we could be a little more respectful to the commissions and just call them if there's something that we need to correct here. This is, I feel like this already happened one other time. A bunch got sent back. If there's not some clear direction on the parts of the commissions, I also noticed they don't have like the same template. This is obviously not something that the commission should be penalized for. It's already a sensitive topic that the commission structure has changed, and for certain commissions have found it sensitive, and I think we could show them a little bit more support here. I also want to point out something that I'm going to be bringing up again later. It's kind of, again, disrespectful for the fact that we've got commission minutes. I'll just talk about my own. I'm not sure if these other ones are delayed for other reasons, but electoral area B, May 16th, and here we're in July, and we're seeing their minutes. Like, how much do we actually value the commission then when we're seeing them 8 weeks later? So, thank you.
Thank you. Director Sebring on the propriety of referral.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I meant no disrespect at all in seconding this motion, but you know what? If there are recommendations in these minutes that need to be acted upon, and we're gonna direct staff to do certain things, process is process. And if there were meetings where quorum wasn't present, that's not a process. And I really struggled. I mean, we got to do this stuff right, because ultimately, if there's action items that involve spending taxpayer money, you better believe there better be a quorum in those meetings. And it's not disrespectful to say that. Having said that, I might agree that perhaps we need to do a better job as an organization of training up these community volunteers when they come into this role to get them to understand what quorum is, and maybe to provide them with some templates for minutes and stuff so that we have some standardized stuff. That's on us. But there's no disrespect intended here. But if we're going to take actions based on recommendations from these groups, there's a reason there's a quorum requirement, and no disrespect intended whatsoever. But I think this needs to go back for another vote.
Director Smith.
There was a new Parks Commission bylaw that came into effect in January, I believe, and from that, all the Parks Commissions are making adjustments. Each Parks Commission of the 9 Parks Commissions have had to go through a process of understanding what that document stated. There was not an orientation held by the CVRD staff until later in June to even orient these parks commissions to the new bylaw and the expectations that were to be placed upon them and how the minutes were to be produced. I know that my commission has now worked very hard to create documents that are sitting before you for the June 3rd meeting that show very clearly that they worked very, very hard to try to make sure that they accommodated the new process that they were given an orientation on. So I beg the directors today to not make a judgment call on the minutes based on everything not being I's dotted and T's crossed. We need to move forward for our parks commissions. These are community parks commissions. They're not staff, they're volunteers within our community. And if they've made an error by not including all the names, I can look at the 3rd of June and I know that there was a quorum. I know that the May meeting, there was a quorum. So unfortunately, you would have to take my word that there was a quorum. But I would like to pull some things out of those minutes to have a quick
At an appropriate time, we may move forward with that. We have
Yeah.
a motion on the floor now, so. Director Morrison.
Yeah, and specifically to the propriety of the motion, and that's for clarification and correction. And there's no disrespect intended. I've served as secretary, I've served as a parks chair, and if a set of minutes comes back for clarification and correction, it was never considered insulting that they were sent back for clarification and correction. And specifically the propriety of just sending these 3 noted items back, I'm not suggesting that we don't consider the synopsis that's at the top of this information package and that we don't discuss those things. I'm just, as Director Sebring had noted, we have process and we better make sure that there's clarity around those process, whether it be a Parks Commission, APC, regardless. And if we're, in a sense, accepting these minutes, we should make sure that they're correct and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It looks to me like this item is for information. So I don't understand why you wouldn't send the minutes back to make them accurate and they can be certified and it won't maybe change substantially the information, but I don't know. I don't mean disrespect when I say this, but wouldn't the directors really need to let their parks commissions know that they need to take attendance? I mean, that is a common thing at a commission meeting, is that you know who's there and that people that are voting are rightly able to vote. And so I think it would be good as a board to have that, and I like Director Sebring's suggestion of a template that could be shared. I don't know how that's happened in the past, but I think that could easily rectify it. Present, absent, that kind of thing.
Thank you, Director Marsh. Director Stone.
Yeah, and we're beating this to death here, but, looking at the minutes individually, actually one of them does show that there wasn't a quorum. So if there was an error there, then it definitely needs to be corrected, because if you don't have a quorum, you can't make recommendations that move forward without a quorum. So that being said, yeah, let's help these guys out, get on track, but you can't just disregard the requirements of process. If it shows that there's no quorum, you can't adopt recommendations that came from a commission without quorum. So I would just suggest that this item was supposed to be for information. We've already talked about referring it back. We should have just accepted the information, moved on, and advised the commissions to make sure they have quorum.
Thank you, Director Stone. Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Director Smith and Director Acton on their words. They're absolutely right. There seems to be this concentration, and don't get me wrong, process is all very well, but once that process becomes so cumbersome that it gets in the way of any progress at all, then it becomes a problem. And to to send this back to the commissions who have spent a lot of time and effort in putting forward these bits and pieces, it's like smacking children on the hand. In the end, the volunteers are going to say, I'm not going to do this anymore. What's the point? All I'm getting is criticism. And that's what it sounds like right now. I am very lucky in as much as I've got a very good parks chairperson who does everything right. But, you know, give these guys some slack, for goodness sake.
Director Smith.
Once again, I'd like to repeat that there was not a Parks Commission orientation for the Parks Commissions till the middle of June. And that only at that time were they made aware of the template that they can use, that they were given as a guideline for how to create their minutes. The process we have been given as directors for our Parks Commissions is that they hold a meeting, the minutes are produced, the minutes then go to the staff looks at the minutes, the director, when these come up for information, they may only appear for the other directors looking at it as information, but technically it's for us as area directors to pull items out of these minutes and bring them out in a meeting to say, these are recommendations made by our Parks Commissions, and that we are bringing them forward for parks to be acknowledged at this time, at this meeting. Otherwise, things are slip sliding underneath the table, and the Parks Commissions don't even know what's been going on. This is our opportunity for our Parks Commission's recommendations to be brought out in a public forum.
Director Stone.
I just want to be clear here. This isn't about being disrespectful. It's actually part of the parks bylaw. If there isn't a quorum of members within 15 minutes of the date, the meeting needs to be adjourned until a future date. You can't make recommendations at a meeting where quorum isn't recorded, and that is part of the parks bylaw. So it's not something being disrespectful to volunteers. It's just you can't go against your own bylaws and then move recommendations forward that came from a meeting where it shouldn't have been held in the first place because there wasn't quorum, right? So I appreciate all the little hiccups, but, you know, this is crazy. Let's just move on.
There is a motion of referral on those 3 items. It's been duly debated, respectfully, I might add, as per our code of conduct. Thank you. No one went across the table with pencils at anyone? I'm going to call the question on referral. All those in favor? Those opposed, if you can keep them up, please. Motion carries. Ms. Acton, Director Acton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to actually go back to what Lynn was Director Smith, sorry, was pointing out about the recommendations. So have things changed? We've highlighted what the recommendations are. Are we to assume that they've been heard, or are we to pull them out and have the board agree on them now if there's anything on here?
Mr. Farquhar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So these are recommendations, and in talking with the CAO, we would like to, in future meetings, bring a bit more clarity to the minutes that are coming to you from your commissions, because all of the recommendations before you are basically a mix. There's 11 items here that are either responding to referrals that have come through the committee or from staff pertaining to subdivision applications, for example, that have park dedication requirements where reports have gone to your commissions asking for their input recommendations back. So those we're able to action on upon receiving the minutes, because there are things that have been either previously directed through the committee or board, or through planning in terms of the processes we have. There's several that are very minor operational matters that in due course staff are actioning on or following up on. However, there are 8 new requests that would require direction of the committee if the committee is so inclined to consider what the commissions are recommending, that would require staff to advise back to you the resources, the budgeting, and the impacts on the work plan for things that are otherwise aren't currently included in this year's work plan under the Parks and Trails division. So there would be implications in terms of what the directors may wish to have staff consider, and we'd have to report back on. So I can certainly note those if that would be of help to the committee in terms of those items that have not been referred back, that the committee may or may not wish to give consideration to in terms of new items. And I'll look to the committee to give that direction, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Follow-up, Director Acton? Director Sebring?
Of the 8, for Mr. Farquhar, thank you, Mr. Chair, of the 8 that you've identified, how many of those are contained within the 3 sets of minutes that we just sent back?
Mr. Chair, through to Director Sebring, the 8 would be, I just count them quickly here. There would be 6 of the 8 in the minutes that have been referred back.
See, and that's my problem, if I may, Mr. Chair, because, you know, we are being asked, and I'm not sure if staff is asking, but potentially we are looking at recommendations from meetings that, according to our bylaws, may not have been valid. So are the recommendations valid, and are they properly before us to consider? That's the crux of the issue. I don't know what to do with it.
Thank you.
Putting it out there. Thank you.
Alternate Director McNeil.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, I'm bringing forward this question from Director Nicholson, sends her regrets. Is there a mechanism or a practice where recommendations from parks commissions are being responded to individually? And I guess by that I mean, when commissions are forwarding their wish lists and their suggestions, those items that are not being actioned, are they getting back to the commissions with a rationale as to why? I'm not sure I made myself clear.
Mr. Chair, I guess it would be prudent upon the individual area director if recommendations arising from that commission are not being acted upon by this committee. It's not, I think, the role of staff to be reporting back on committee's actions. We'd be looking to the committee to advise back to the individual commissions if there are things that the commissions were thinking were important to take on that the committee otherwise was making a decision not to, okay, or not otherwise actioning on. So it resides with this committee.
All right, so I understand then that it is the director who should be the conduit back to their local commission? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sir, yes, Mr. Crothers.
If I can add just some more context to the question, the reason that we have changed the process is that in the past, often Parks Commission minutes were coming to committee, and they were being received, and they were not being discussed, and they were being filed. And there was a gap because the commissions were not clear on whether the recommendations were even looked at, considered, acted upon. Obviously, if they were operational issues that staff were able to, they would very likely get back to the commissions, but often the recommendations from the commissions required amendments to work plans or additional resources or amendments to budgets. And so the reason that we've done this is so that when the commission meeting minutes are coming forward, you're reviewing them. If there are items that require direction from the committee with regard to resource allocation, changes in policy, those sorts of matters, they get addressed and they get followed up in minutes. And then as Mr. Farquhar said, the information can go back through the directors to the commissions. It was very loose, and this is intended to tighten it up so there's some certainty and some formality around the committee actually addressing the recommendations of the commissions and some follow through.
Okay, Director Acton.
Thank you. I'm just going to check on this because once this is gone, it's gone, and it would be hard to bring it back to this table if I need to, because there's a lot of unclarity here. I'd like to ask about the Area B Community Parks Advisory Commission, that they put forward request that Gallon Road and Old Mill Playground replacements, the advisory commission adopt option number 3. In the report, we had staff there. So I'm assuming that we're going forward with number 3. And number 3, for those who weren't there, is just for staff to bring back forward some more options that would be a win for both playgrounds.
Mr. Chair, that's correct. That was a staff report to the commission. The commission has responded back to the staff report.
Director Stone?
I guess the helpful thing would have been saying instead of for information, for direction, because these are recommendations. When our Parks Commission municipally sends us, it recommends, and then we adopt them and then direct staff, and then everything happens, right? So in this case, what we're saying, this is a perfect example, the electoral area B stuff is being actioned, but I don't remember it ever coming to the board to be actioned, right? So there needs to be something in the recommendations in the agenda that says, for direction, these are the recommendations, and I understand that's what this intention is, but when it says for information, we read it and we go, okay, well, maybe some magic happens at EASC or something, right? To get it done. So that being said, sounds like the electoral area B item is moving forward, but has the board given that direction to approve that? Because now, or are we actually assigning commissions with the authority to budget and action items on behalf of the board?
I think Mr. Farquhar will address that one.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is through previously approved budgets and developing plans, not necessarily something coming to the board for further approval.
Okay, so the money's been allocated for this already. Great, that makes total sense, but that information's not being forwarded to this committee for consideration. So obviously, I think we've highlighted a few things. If it says for direction, then we know to actually go through with a fine tooth comb, make sure that all of the things are happening that allows a advisory commission to make a recommendation to the committee, and then it can go through. So I'm just going to ask through the chair to whoever can answer it, is there something for us to action on this right now so that we can move on to the next item?
I have one more speaker, so if you'll hold that thought. Yeah, no problem. Mr. Farquhar.
Mr. Chair, there are 2 items that would be new items for consideration by the committee, both out of the Electoral Area E Community Parks minutes of May 13th. That being the one for Keating Park, requesting that Keating Park being piloted as an off-leash park, and also for Curry and Glenora Trailhead Parks, requesting that recycling containers be placed in picnic shelters at Curry and Glenora Trailhead Parks. Both are budgetary and staff resource matters that we would be looking for direction, because they would be new and outside the scope of what's in the current work plan. And we'd have to give consideration as well, because both of these could be applicable to other parks. So we'd be looking at wanting to develop consistency and continuity in terms of how these things would be delivered, rather than looking at one-off per parks, because we're not necessarily resourced up to provide boutique services in each electoral area.
Could I have
Follow-up, Dr. Stone?
So then would it be appropriate for a motion, if that's the only actionable one that's in front of us right now, Area B's stuff sounds like it's good, that these items be referred to staff for a report back to the committee on how to action them? So I would move that the Electoral Area E Community Parks Advisory Commission meeting minutes recommendations from May 13, 2019 be referred to staff for a report back on how to action them appropriately.
It's been moved, seconded. Discussion on that. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? I had you on the list, Director Sebring. You still wish to speak?
So I still question, what are we doing with those other 6 recommendations? And I guess I would ask Mr. Carruthers as the head of this organization. I mean, of those 6 that were in the 3 sets of minutes that we sent back, how many of them have money allocated? And I find it interesting, as an aside, that the Electoral Area E Commission minute recommendations for the Trail Etiquette Communication Education Campaign didn't come up in what Mr. Farquhar just said. Are we already doing that and the commission didn't know? I mean, again, there's different things going on. But I guess my primary question is to Mr. Carruthers in terms of what does he recommend with respect to those 6 things that we've identified as being in the minutes that are non-conforming, if I can put it that way. Is there resources already allocated to those recommendations, or does the whole thing go back now?
So there's two issues, Mr. Chair. One is that you've already dealt with the issue of the admissibility of these minutes based on whether or not there was quorum present when the meetings were held. These are your commissions. This is your bylaw as a committee, so you have to make the decision as to whether you're wanting to accept or decline those, and the motion was made to refer those minutes back for clarification around quorum. So if that has been done, then I would suggest that you're not considering these other 6. Looking at those other items, a number of them have budgetary issues that staff would have to report back on, or policy types of issues. Others would be more operational in nature. So, given that I think that you've determined that you want to stick with your bylaw and you want to ensure that quorum is held, we would refer these back, and staff could then, once these are clarified, come back with a more detailed report around the implications similar to the conversation we just had earlier.
Thank you very much for that clarity.
And there was thought of perhaps a special community services meeting in August that they could reside in, if that's the intent of this board.
Just one other
Director
question.
Sebring?
It goes to practice. We sent 3 back, which leaves 6 sets of minutes for information. Do we need a motion to receive them for information, or is that assumed in terms of practice?
Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, they're just on there for information, no legislative requirement
Thank
to
you.
receive them.
I have Director Smith.
Okay, so that we flogged this to death, let's keep going. My June 3rd Saltaire Community Parks Advisory Commission, if you want to look at it, they've mislabeled and put the alternate director, Greg Taylor, who is a member of the commission, in the wrong place. There was a quorum, and I believe that the June meeting minutes should be accepted. The quorum is there. A name is written in a wrong spot. Are you gonna throw it out just based on that?
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Harrison.
This item has already been referred back.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Smith. Anything further on this? I looked at this agenda item and I thought, 5 minutes, Director Stone? You got 5 minutes?
So, no, I got just 1 second. So
Okay.
my recommendation is next time we just divvy up the recommendations which need direction and which are just for information.
Yeah, so noted. I think we've noted the complexity of of this process. And in all fairness, it's the first time we've tried this as well. Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item on the,
I think we did the
We already
referral
voted on
already.
that.
Not the Area E.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Point of order. On the Area E? Okay, those are the 2 recommendations within that. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Thank you very much. Ms. Harrison?
thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving to reports, we have item R1, a report from the Facilities and Transit Division regarding the 2019-2020 annual operating agreement with BC Transit. And the recommendation before you is that it be recommended to the board that the annual operating agreement with BC Transit for 12 months commencing April 1st, 2019 be approved.
Director Marsh, are you moving that?
I apologize, and I don't know if procedurally we can go back to what we just last talked about, but I'm not clear. I understood that we, I'm talking about the Area E minutes, that we had them go to staff for a report because this could be a kind of a universal issue. Is that what?
That's what we were voting on, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You're moving it, Director Yanni DiNardo.
Yes.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Staples. Discussion on this. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item R2 is the report from the Facilities and Transit Division regarding the 2018-2019 Customer and Local Government Survey reports from BC Transit, and that is for information.
Director Marcotte?
Thank you. I just want to make it clear that I am not in that particular function, and therefore I haven't put money or anything like that in it because it's I don't have any transit facilities in my area. So just making that clear.
Thank you.
We'd like you to get on the bus.
Anything further on that? That's just for information. Moving along, Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item, item R3, is a report from the from the Cowichan Community Center Commission regarding a memorandum of understanding regarding revitalization of the former Aquinas Center space at Cowichan Community Center. And the recommendation before you is that it be recommended to the board that the memorandum of understanding with Cowichan Valley Youth Services and Duncan Dynamics Gymnastics for the revitalization of the former Aquinas Center space as attached to the Cowichan Community Center Division's June 7th, 2019 staff report be approved.
Moved by Director Marsh, seconded by the whole table. Any discussion? You're waiting with bated breath, Ms. Bell? M'lady. All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous, ma'am. Next, Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item R4 is a report from the Arts and Culture Division regarding budget amendment approval for function 426. And the recommendation before you is that it be recommended to the board that the 2019 budget for function 426, Cowichan Performing Arts Center, be amended to 1, increase federal conditional grant revenue by $55,000, 2, increase short-term borrowing by $50,000, and 3, increase capital expenses for furniture, fixtures, and equipment by $105,000.
Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded Director Staples. Questions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Thank you. And I think we're going to interject new business 1 here. It's related to function 426. Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item, NB1, is a report from the Arts and Culture Division regarding budget amendment for approval for function 426. And the recommendation before you is that it be recommended to the board that the 2019 budget for function 426, Cowichan Performing Arts Center, be amended to number 1, increase transfer from operating reserve by $6,980, and number 2, increase deficit by $6,980.
Moved by Director Yanni DiNardo, seconded Director Marsh. Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is R5, which is a report from the Parks and Trails Division regarding Parks and Trails volunteer policy. And the recommendation before you is that it be recommended to the board that the CVRD Parks and Trails volunteer policy as attached to the Parks and Trails Division report to the July 10th, 2019 Community Services Committee meeting be approved.
Moved by Director Marsh, seconded by Director Marcotte. Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? 1 opposed. Director Smith. That's carried. Thank you. Next, Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is R6. It's a report from the Parks and Trails Division regarding active transportation infrastructure memorandum of understanding, and the recommendation before you is that it be recommended to the board that the active transportation memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure attached to the Parks and Trails Division report to the July 10th meeting of the Community Services Committee be approved.
Moved by Director Stone, seconded by Director Morrison. Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries. Oh, Mr. Carruthers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to acknowledge the work of Mr. Farquhar and as well as our other partner regional districts in achieving this. This is a significant milestone. We worked really, really hard with the ministry. This was one of the strategic objectives of the previous term of the board, to initiate a format and a process by which we can construct roadside pathways and trails. We previously had a very ad hoc process with the ministry to do that. And it has been considerable meetings, teleconferences, reviewing of documents amongst, as I said, ourselves as well as our partners. And I think this is a significant achievement and is going to pave the way, pardon the pun, for us to be looking at really enhancing our roadside pathway network with the ministry. And I want to give kudos to the ministry because they worked really hard with us as well. This was going against the grain for them, and I think they looked outside the box and worked really hard to work with us to pull this together. So I want to acknowledge all involved.
And Director Morrison?
Thank you. Echo what Mr. Carruthers had said, and also just highlight how the work of the previous board and the importance placed on this issue during the corporate strategic planning process made this a key priority for the electoral area directors for last term, and it was action not only by electoral area directors but AVICC and different partners throughout the island and the coastal region, and the ministry really did step up. They assigned key people to this file, and I wouldn't have thought, because all across the province, as Mr. Carruthers said, they were going in a different direction, and because of hard work done by previous electoral area directors and all the hard work of staff, this is now something where we can actually look at connecting communities, and it's a pretty big deal. So,
And a new government.
wanted to say that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. Harrison, next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item on the agenda is R7, which is a report from the Parks and Trails Division regarding the Shawnigan Lake Village Area Playgrounds Review, and that is for information.
Okay. Director Acton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to say thank you to the parks for acting so quickly, and I realize it was unexpected. And I'd also like to thank them for executing our public input so quickly. And now I would also like to point out that we need to move as quickly as possible so that the kids have somewhere to play. And I have a resolution, if I have a seconder, the resolution that the next report the next step for this report would be to present the community engagement, and to wait 2 months I feel is too long. So I have a resolution that the next report go to a special community services meeting on August 14th.
Okay, that's been moved. Seconded. Any discussion? Well, absolutely, Director Stone.
So we're creating a meeting to discuss one item?
Well, I actually have a motion for a second item as well. And we have meetings that day.
Oh, we do have meetings
yeah,
that day?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And perhaps those minutes that were returned will be back with the recommendations that we didn't deal with earlier. On the motion, Director Marsh?
I have a question, yes. So what would have happened if there wasn't this motion with this?
We'd wait 2 months.
It would go to the September.
Okay, so will this be able to be done by whoever has to do it? I mean, are there going to be people on holidays or something? No. Okay, thank you.
All good on that one? I'll call the question on that motion. All in favor? Opposed, if any? You're opposed?
No?
Oh,
I
Wow.
have a second. Sorry.
I think I had Director Smith's hand up. Did I not? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Too many hands. Director Acton, another one?
No,
Motion did carry. Thank you, I'm sorry.
thank you, sorry, I'm too enthusiastic here. Also, I have a motion to go, I would like to, for us as a board to discuss at that special community services, the structure and the frequency that we're having our community services. I think this is way too long to have 2 months apart when having information or motions coming forward. So the motion is for us as a board to discuss and review the frequency of our community services meetings.
So perhaps we can just add that as an agenda item? Would that be appropriate, Ms. Harrison? Director Stone?
I think that's the chair has the prerogative to schedule meetings, I believe. It's not if, I guess we can discuss it, but the chair can.
Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you. As Director Stone correctly deduced, we do have an adopted meeting schedule, so if you wish to make changes, it's a board decision.
You most certainly can. Director Acton?
I guess I'd like to comment on this motion as well. Our last discussion around the commission minutes is a perfect example as to why we shouldn't be waiting 2 months, and perhaps we should be looking at our community parks being discussed at electoral area services first, and then they can come to the board. I think it would be a worthwhile discussion to have.
No,
Because I
perfect.
found the time frame really frustrating.
Thank you. That's just direction to staff, I believe, is it not? Excellent. Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item on the agenda is R8, which is a report from Parks and Trails Division regarding Butte Island Regional Park provincial lease renewal. And the recommendation before you is that it be recommended to the board, number one, that provincial water lot lease number 103004, located at Butte Island in electoral area H, legally described as District Lot 489, Cowichan District, be amended to change the use from a private moorage facility to public use. And number two, that a 30-year renewal of provincial water lot lease number 103004, located at Butte Island in Ladysmith Harbor, legally described as District Lot 489, Cowichan District, as amended, be approved.
Moved by Director Stone, seconded by Director Yanni DiNardo. Okay, I'll give it to you. Director Marcotte. I seen her hand first.
Oh, there we go.
Comments?
Yeah, so, and this kind of caught me by surprise, and here we are. I think the lease expires in a week or less. So we do need to move forward with it. I did have some preliminary conversations with Chief Elliott. Our practice in our area of the regional district, and I'm sure Director Marcotte can support this, is that we typically, if we're talking about Crown lease renewals, would have a conversation with the Staminas First Nation before they receive the referral from the province. It just creates the right conditions and gets any feedback ahead of the process. So I did share as much information with Chief Elliott as I could. Unfortunately, because I just found out about this in the agenda review last week, there isn't time for us to do what I would consider would be appropriate engagement on a Crown lot renewal, lease renewal ahead of time. So I will support this, but I will just sort of provide the suggestion that however we deal with different nations throughout the district, I know that our practice should be to at least have a conversation with the affected First Nations in the area before they receive a referral from the province on a Crown lease renewal. I will follow up with Chief Elliott and Staminas about this one, along with Director Marcotte. So, and being that it is just the dock, it's not, a major Crown lease renewal, I think we can get away with it this time, so to speak, but I would definitely recommend in the future that we always consult early in advance of putting renewal applications in on any Crown asset within the regional district.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item R9 is a report from the Parks and Trails Division regarding Parkland Exchange Alternative Approval Process in Electoral Area D, Cowichan Bay. The recommendation before you, yes?
Would like to have this referred and wanted to speak to it. Do I wait till after you read it out?
No, you can make that
You
motion.
can make the referral motion now.
Great. I just, for consistency and
So
continuity,
Director Yanni DiNardo was moving referral.
please.
Do I have a seconder
And I'd like
to refer?
To where?
To
I'd
where?
like to refer it back to our Parks Commission, and actually to refer it to the August 14th, now that we have August 14th, because I know September is a long time away. Our Parks Commission hadn't had a chance. There was some of our Parks members went on a site visit, but they hadn't reviewed this staff report at all. So I would like to have them be able to review that and then come back to August 14th with their recommendations, since they're advisory to myself. So I'd just like to have that.
So it was duly moved and seconded on referral. Any further discussion? Propriety of referral? Would it be returned back to your commission? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That carries.
Thank you.
Point of clarification.
Absolutely.
That was a two-part recommendation. It was referred back to Advisory Commission with a report back to the special.
August 14th,
Community
Special
Services
Community
Committee.
Services Committee. Thank you for the clarification. Moving on, Ms. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. R10 is a report from the Parks and Trails Division regarding subdivision application and parks dedication of 1080 Shawnigan Mill Bay Road in Electoral Area A, Mill Bay Malahat. And the recommendation before you is that it be recommended to the board that a 5% parkland dedication requirement under Section 510 of the Local Government Act for subdivision of 1080 Shawnigan Mill Bay Road to provide for a future community trail connection be approved.
Moved, Director Salmon, seconded Director Acton. Discussion?
Sorry, I didn't want to move it, I just wanted to comment first. I want to move, okay.
Yep.
I want to move the option 2, which is the cash in lieu.
Okay. You can still move it and talk against it. Absolutely.
We already have a mover and a second.
It's been moved and seconded. Director Salmon, you wish to speak to that?
Oh, okay, yes. So this one, interesting, because this is the Parks Commission meeting May 9th, not the one we sent back. So we did have a full quorum. And this was unanimous that the community would like cash in lieu in this case. The trail as, the proposed trail, what's the word, allowance wasn't in the right spot. There's a couple of reasons. There's a couple of other options that are better, and one is the long existing one to the high school. So I think in the spirit, especially today, talking about the Parks Commission, I'd really like us all to support the Parks Commission and what I myself think is a better option, which is cash in lieu. So I ask we defeat this motion and make a different one when we've done that.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Keep your hands up high. That motion is defeated. Follow-up, Mr. Salmon, Director Salmon.
Move option 2, which is to take cash in lieu.
Moved and seconded to take cash in lieu. Discussion on that. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That motion carries. Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item on the agenda is a report from the Parks and Trails Division regarding the 2019 electoral area regional Parks and Trails work plan update, and that is for information.
Okay. Anything on this from the board? Committee, sorry. Moving on, Ms. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is no unfinished business. New business, item NB1 was brought forward under item R4. So we move to question period.
So is there anyone in the audience that wishes to ask a question? Oh,
Come on, Ryan.
where'd they go? I'm sure there's many questions on today's agenda, but we'll deal with them in the director's room. Thank you, Ms. Harrison. Next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item would be a motion to go into closed session.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Can we have a 5 or 10 minute break? Let's go 5 to 10.